Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Flesh Wound Farce, where we discuss and review your and our favorite comedies. This is the world's first and only combination trivia host and professional wrestling announcer of Chilean descent that currently resides in Southern California, Ozzy V. And with me, as always, on this program, first in the Northern Bay Area, is Greg. How you doing, Greg?
I am fantastic. I am having my first beer of the new year. Definitely enjoying it.
But it's January. I mean, sorry, it's January 2nd when we're recording this. You okay? You did not drink at midnight?
I didn't drink beer at midnight.
Well, no, okay. No, stop. I mean, like, if you've had alcohol, you can't say, oh, this is my first beer of the new year, but I've been drinking all this other stuff. You can't do that.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
Whatever. That's like a downgrade.
It doesn't reset till you go to sleep. So if you didn't drink at all during the day yesterday, it doesn't count.
Not when you love beer. Beer is a special occasion when you have it. So it is my first beer of the new year, and got a special cup just for you, Ozzy.
Oh, yeah. A Niners mug for those listening in the audio version. The only thing that I look to beer to is if I want to punish my taste buds. But moving on, also with us on this program, Flesh Wound producer Todd. How are you, Todd?
I am fine. You brought up special occasion. You'd think, the show would be a special occasion, and at least Ozzy would do
2021.
It. First one, exactly.
Here's the thing. It feels like December 33rd, 2020 to me.
I get that. But, it is a special occasion.
Technically, it would be December 36th or 35th by the time this came out.
So at the very least, you'd comb your hair for the special occasion.
You son of a...
Or have your first beer of the new year. See, Ozzy, get with the program.
I don't think I had any beer in 2020. And that's actually something I'm proud of. I did ring in the new year with some whiskey. That was fun.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. Whiskey and Cobra Kai. But we're not here to talk about Cobra Kai. As awesome as it was. We are here to talk about Blazing Saddles this week on this first Flesh Wound Farce of the new year. But before we get into that Mel Brooks classic first, we have our commercial that we're going to have a stupid discussion about. This week's commercial brought to you by Greg, a Marc Jacobs fragrance commercial. Todd, if you would please do the honors.
Daisy, 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 Marc Jacobs.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so for those that are listening to the audio, we just had a large open field. Imagine Sound of Music, but more trees, less mountainy. And there were three women in white sundresses that had like daisies, the daisy crowns, right? And they all had daisies and they're smelling the daisy and they keep looking at the camera holding the daisy. And to no surprise, it's Daisy by Marc Jacobs, as you heard. The new fragrance by Marc Jacobs. Greg, this was the one you brought up, so I'll let you take it away.
Okay, so this has come on several times, over and over and over. And sometimes when I'm watching things, I'll hear that like 3 times during one show during its commercial breaks. And so when you have that Daisy, 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 Daisy at the end, it gets stuck in your head. And you're looking at all these women like, frolicking through the field and just like all wearing the same thing, chanting Daisy. You're like, cool. So Marc Jacobs is a cult. Like it's very cult status. And it is really ominous every time I watch it and has no emotion to it at all. And it just creeps me out every single time. And I go, this, cool, drink the Kool-Aid of Marc Jacobs. I just don't agree with this commercial. I think it's wrong, and I think it gets stuck in your head. That's all.
I'm with you in terms of them repeating the word Daisy multiple times, because if you just had the commercial of them smelling the daisy and had nobody say the word daisy, that'd actually be fine. But it just seemed so weird to hear that. And it kind of reminds me of last week when we were talking about the New York Giants cardboard fan cutout commercial for Bud Light. And there was other people in the apartment. I was like, why did you need to have other people there? The whole reason this cardboard cutout is in the Giant Stadium is, is because nobody's supposed to be together at the stadium. So anyway, going back to this, is that if they had fewer words, the commercial would cost less. So I wonder if it was something in the contract that was forced that each actress was guaranteed a minimum X amount of money. So they needed to say the words X amount of times to justify the amount they're being paid. That's my only guess. Todd?
This is the first time I've seen it, and I was just hoping it was kind of like Midsummer and something was going to happen because they all have the look going. But I was like, what am I watching? It doesn't make me want to buy my old lady Daisy or anything. I'm like, if anything, the opposite. I see that, I'm throwing that crap away.
Because you don't know. You don't know if she's going to start repeating the word Daisy after putting it on.
Or set me on fire after. I don't know.
It might.
Exactly.
I wouldn't be
I'm so
surprised.
glad you get it.
No, we're all with you there. And we'll have the link to the commercial in the description. But next up, the main feature, and that is the classic Blazing Saddles. Some initial thoughts on this. It's always been a classic, but I've never had the analytic goggles on, so to speak, to really try and, like I haven't seen this all the way through in a very long time, actually. Like I saw it when I was a teenager, the first time, actually. I saw it multiple times in my early 20s. And then there was a while where I hadn't seen it. So this was the first time I'd seen it in a few years. And it is a bit shocking at first that when you hear the language that you hear, but at the same time, even in the theme song, it talks about the sheriff overcoming hate. So it's almost a necessity because that was the time. And Lord knows this could have been a situation that happened, or not the whole situation, but in terms of, somebody looking past that. But beyond that, ultimately fun movie that we'll get into a deeper discussion for. But Greg, initial thoughts.
Look, this movie, hands down, is one of the. I don't watch movies typically a second or third time. This movie I will watch any day somebody wants to. I watched it 3 times I know of last year. Once was watching it with my wife for the first time, which again, that language and some of the gender jokes in there definitely were a bit shocking to my wife, but because she's got a good sense of humor, she definitely had a good laugh at them. So for the time right now, I think some people might have an issue, but all in all, it's one of my favorite comedies of all time.
I think you're right. It's going to hurt a lot of 2021 ears if they're watching it for the first time. Not getting that they're trying to tackle racism in the way that right. Now would not fly at all. But even still, it's been a while since I've watched it too. So a few of them I was like, damn, it's going hard right out of the gate.
That's actually one thing they mentioned on the documentary on the Blu-ray I have here. There's a documentary about the whole thing, and they talk about the language in the film and how it kind of punched racism in the face and made you laugh while it was happening. Yeah. At the same time, like the town itself, welcomed everybody. So it was like set up and it worked. I haven't even attempted watching a television version. But one fun thing that I noticed throughout the entire movie was the fact that, well, actually, before that, I should probably read the synopsis just in case anybody is unfamiliar. Now, the release date was on February 7th, 1974. This was Mel Brooks' second movie in the United States after The Producers. This synopsis states, in this satirical take on Westerns, crafty railroad worker Bart, played by Cleavon Little, becomes the first black sheriff of Rock Ridge, a frontier town about to be destroyed in order to make way for a new railroad. Initially, the people of Rock Ridge harbor a racial bias toward their new leader. However, they warm to him after realizing that Bart and his perpetually drunk gunfighter friend, played by Gene Wilder, are the only defense against a wave of thugs sent to rid the town of its population. As you heard, Clavon Little as the star with Gene Wilder as well. This film also features Harvey Korman, Slim Pickens, and Madeline Kahn in other roles. Now, one thing that I wanted to bring up, because I thought it was going to be brought up during the documentary, but it wasn't, was the way I felt about Bart is the same way I feel like watching Bugs Bunny. Like in terms of him looking to the camera, and even very early when they're trying to suggest him to be the sheriff, and the guys or Harvey Korman's or Headley
Lamar.
Headley Lamar, thank you, suggesting to the governor, put him sheriff, you might, dare I say, and just switches to Bart, and he says, oh no, dare. And I like, that's told such a Bugs Bunny thing that
Yeah.
oh no, dare, right? And even further to that point, there's a couple of deleted scenes. One of them was put in the TV version, and that is first when I'm forgetting all these names now. Mongo, thank you. When I'm talking to myself.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mongo, had two voices in here. Anyway, Mongo's into town to take care of the sheriff, and there's a dummy that's set up like an arcade, and you just hear a voice come out that says, "Input a quarter," or like put in a quarter to draw. He says, "Okay, on the count of 3, draw. 1, 2," and then a door opens up from the chest, and a cannon blows Mongo in the face. He's obviously not dead. And then you see to the side Bart holding a megaphone. 3. That it felt like such a Bugs Bunny thing. And the last thing I'll say is another deleted scene is when he's dressed as like a carnival barker, and he's standing next to an aquatic suit, and he's saying, "Go deep diving for treasure." Fools Mongo into going into the suit, and Mongo's like, "How am I gonna get the air?" It's like, "Oh no, there's a pump here. I'll do it for you." So Mongo's underwater. And then Bart looks at the camera and says, "Oh, it's time for my break." Leaves the air pump. Mongo's tugging on it. And then a sign comes down that says, "Deposit 25 cents for oxygen." And then he's like looking at his pockets, and it fades out. That felt like such like a Wile E. Coyote thing as well. Like that's such like a goofy parody that you would see in this parody. Now, before I ask you guys some more things about this film,
I have a question about the deleted scenes before you move on.
Yes.
There's one joke that Mel Brooks cut for being too racy.
I think I know which one it is.
Okay, well, I was going to ask if it was included. I'm going to do it as clean as possible. It's actually not. It's not a racial one, so it's not that bad. You could argue that, but in the scene with what is her name, Madeline Kahn, and she blows out the candles and says, "Is it true what they say?" Cleavon's response is, "I hate to disillusion you, ma'am, but you're sucking on my arm."
Yeah, that was the one joke Warner Brothers wanted him to cut.
Well, that's when he said we went too far.
In the documentary, he said it was Warner Brothers.
Oh.
Yeah, he said it was Warner Brothers that told him to cut it, but Mel Brooks was defending the choice on the documentary I saw. Maybe he had a change of heart between the footage you saw that in, or
look, if you have to defend that scene or the fart scene, I think he stood his ground on the one that needed to be in there.
Which for TV, all the fart sounds are edited off.
Yeah.
So awkward.
If you could ever see the TV version in its entirety, it's hysterical. Well, it's hysterical for the wrong reasons, but it's right. Worth, yeah.
And I do believe that was the first fart heard in motion pictures.
Yes, exactly. The person playing that role that cut the first one, he was a firefighter, and as a fallback, that's what he would go do. And he said, "If this doesn't work out, I don't know if I could go back to the firehouse." And Mel tells him, "It's because of this that you won't need to go back to the firehouse."
Right.
That's awesome.
Oh man. Yeah, it's a fantastic scene. Something else that's mentioned in the documentary is this film was initially written as a serious Western, and the part of Bart was slated to be James Earl Jones, and that eventually fell through. and that somebody had suggested Mel Brooks, and Mel Brooks wanted to rewrite it as a parody. And you'll notice that Harvey Korman, who plays Hedley Lamar, there's some other jokes. I know History of the World came out after this, but there's some parallels. In fact, this is the first one to do it, obviously, but the third film that I've seen. So you have this, Spaceballs, and History of the World, where there's scenes where both the main characters knock out enemy characters to steal their clothing. Because they had to take the KKK uniforms in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Spaceballs, obviously, in the prison, and then History of the World was when they were dressing as the Trojans. So I thought that was fun to see, but also specifically with Harvey Korman is when he tries to lean in for a kiss to someone, he chips his tooth on one of the statues. That's a scene also in History of the World. And the fact that he's constantly correcting people. It's not Hedy Lamar, it's Hedley. Hedley. In History of the World, he's Count de Monet, but everybody keeps calling him, he has to correct him, de Monet. So it was fun to see like that kind of humor, that kind of parallel humor as well. But anything else you guys wanted to touch on before we go into our favorite lines?
Real quick, you keep mentioning the Hedley Lamar. Apparently, Hedy Lamar actually sued Mel Brooks because of the joke. I thought that was hilarious.
Yes, and I'm not sure if that's why they put the line in, it's 1874. You'll be able to sue her. Because I think it happened after the movie came out.
It did, but that just... I didn't even connect that right away. So,
right. But as I said, Greg, anything before we go on to our favorite lines?
I'm glad that the cast got settled with who ended up being in the cast. They originally didn't want Gene Wilder in it because they felt they wanted an older person for his character. I'm ecstatic that they chose him to be in it. And then Black Bart's character, originally, I'm sure a lot of people could put Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor together, was originally supposed to be him. They even thought about Flip Wilson, another fantastic comedian who's to this day told one of the funniest jokes, in my opinion, of all time. If you haven't seen the lady on the train where he does his joke on Johnny Carson, look it up with Flip Wilson. It's fantastic. But yeah, the choices for casting for this film did go through a lot, but man, did they nail it with every person they had.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned Gene Wilder, and it was in one particular scene. This is where my favorite line comes in, when Gene Wilder is depressed, and Bart is asking, well, what are your favorite things to do? Well, play chess and screw. Immediately, let's play chess. That was in this kind of parody where there's just like jokes happening like every second. You kind of see him about to happen. That was one you weren't exactly expecting because he just talked about depression. That was the first joke after that, which was pretty funny. It was a good like roller coaster dip and out of it. What about you guys? First, Greg?
Man, it was so hard. I felt like that was that moment where people are asked, who's your favorite child? That's kind of
a fair point.
How this movie was. Man, I've been tossed and turned about this all day, but I think I'm just going to have to go with one of the, when Black Bart first gets introduced as sheriff and he ends up holding himself up because everyone points guns at him and he's like, I'll do it. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to splatter his brains all over the town. And like, not only is that moment just hilarious, but as he's walking out, there's so many more punchlines to add to it. When the person's like, when the woman says, will somebody help him? And the guy's like, no, that'll entice him to do it. Just one moment after the next. And when he finally gets into cover and is just like, man, I'm smooth. Like that was all around, like just a good 30-45 second chunk of just in tears laughter.
That definitely felt to me like another Bugs Bunny moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bugs Bunny would definitely hold himself hostage in that situation. Todd, what about you?
Well, I went back and forth between a few, but my favorite moment, one of my favorite moments, I'll be honest, is right after, you mentioned them, jumping in the Klan outfits after knocking out the guys. or it's right before to lure him in to knock out the guys. And Gene Wilder is like, "Oh, I got one," and his response is just, "Where's the white women at?" Man, I don't know how many times I've yelled that in public. I don't care. Got to go to the club where the white women at, you know.
Now, I do have to. I want to put in an honorable mention because I was going back and forth between these two, and since Ozzy, you've watched the documentary, I do want to know if it mentions this. There's a scene where Gene Wilder's trying to convince Black Bart of like how he has to be with everybody, like to try to win over the people, and he's just like, "You have to remember, these are farm folk, simple
People of the land.
people of the land, you know." Morons. And Black Bart just bursts out laughing. Like, and I truly feel like that laugh was not meant to be there. Like, he just caught him off guard and just laughed because that was the moment. Do you know if that was like a scripted laugh or did they mention it at all?
They don't mention it, whether the specific thing about the laugh itself. But the reason it was brought up is because going back to the language that Bart experienced when he first was sheriff, he said this particular line where Gene Wilder calls them morons wouldn't be as funny if you just didn't see it right in front of you. And the fact that it addresses those kind of things right here, it's a big middle finger to those people, but that's how they bring up that line. But yeah, you're absolutely right that it did not seem that it was a laugh that was intended to be there, but rather just a serious line that he was delivering genuinely. And I think it got a genuine laugh. But, absolutely fantastic. And going into the rating, I can't give this movie anything less than a 5. As a movie, like even Mel Brooks had said, it's kind of like a dumb, simple plot, but it gave us an opportunity to make fun of all Westerns. And in fact, John Wayne had approached Mel Brooks saying, "Hey, I heard you making a Western." And somebody says the line, "Blow it out your ass." And Mel Brooks replies, "Yes, sir. And Mr. Wayne, we'd like you to say it."
Wow.
And John Wayne says, "I can't be in a Western like that, but I'll be first in line to see it." So
That's awesome.
that must have been awesome because this was Mel Brooks' second movie. Producers was more of an art house. It was like, it wasn't seen all over the place. He felt that any place south of the Mason-Dixon line hadn't seen the producers. And after the producers, he had gone to Yugoslavia to do a foreign film. So for that moment to happen must have been like incredible. But Greg, what about your rating?
Well, like I said at the top of the show,
Are we gonna fight?
What's that?
Are we gonna fight?
Why would we fight?
I don't know. You hesitated when you were about to go in there. I'm concerned about what I'm about to hear.
Okay, so like I said at the top of the show, this is one of the funniest movies of all time. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I can't give it a 5. I have to for the.
I knew we were gonna fight.
If you know the movie well, I have to give it a 6. So for sure, this will be my one and only 6 for this podcast.
That's a fair point.
All right, so I'll be calm down. So.
Yeah. I almost got really mad for a second. What are you talking about?
Now I feel bad giving it a 5. It's like,
yeah, way to peg me down too.
Yeah.
Todd? Oh, so you're gonna go with 5.
Yeah, it's a 5.
Anything else you wanted to add just to 5?
If you haven't seen it, it's one of those things. It's like now it's hard for me. Like if it's a young person, I don't know whether or not I should say go see it. You have to be able to take a joke.
I think like anything, if for younger people, if you explain the time, you explain the situation, you explain what it's meant to be, that there was a time where you could have satire to explain a tough situation, which unfortunately isn't as much allowed these days. If you can explain it and give context, I think this movie's fantastic, except for moments like, him trying to get the pen back to where it needs to be, and the guy goes, just think of it as your secretary. That's a little harder to explain.
That was Ooh, that helped.
But the rest of the movie, I think, could be contextually explained.
I think anybody, if listening to this and they don't know anybody that's seen it, which I think would be a very low percentage, but if that is the case, just do like a quick Google search on the history around this movie and its impact on how its impact on other comedies. It paved the way for a lot of the stuff that we're seeing today. And it's accurately described, I feel, in the documentary as a modern. It's a classic, but it still has modern comedy. Like it feels timeless, and any time period, I think the humor in there doesn't seem like, oh, look at this movie from 1974. It's in line with comedy you'd see today. And that's what will make it stand the test of time. Absolutely fantastic. Can't recommend it enough. Greg gave it a 6 to make me and Todd look like an asshole. But
sorry, Todd.
That's all right.
Now, next week we will be back with a new episode. I'm sorry. Did I miss something?
Skip the Black Bart pilot. I know we.
I totally forgot about the Black Bart pilot. So there is a pilot spinoff show. That
1975.
It's 1975. It was titled Black Bart, starring Lou Gossett. That was Black Bart in a sheriff of a new town. And what made it mostly unbearable was the fact that there was a laugh track. And the movie itself, as we just talked about, paved the way for a lot of different types of movie, going into different types of comedy. So when you hear a laugh track to to anything happening in this world, it takes the fun out of it. It's like, wait, so this is okay now? Like, especially if it's supposed to be made for TV, in the movies, in the theaters, one thing, that's a big deal to see stuff like this. But as a TV, it just felt like very watered down and just forced. It wasn't as fun.
It's funny, and I'm sure we'll talk about the movie in the future, but for the Police Squad, the movie or the television series that later went on and did the Naked Gun films, the reason the show failed was they didn't know what to do. There was no laugh track. People did not know when to laugh at home. So it's like the opposite here. It's really weird, but
right. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend the pilot. I'll say that right. I'll just say that right now.
But if you try, you'll know why.
Right. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we will be back next week. And don't forget to check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/fleshwoundfeatures. What's going on Flesh Wound Horror, Todd? Stuff.
There's some things.
We're going to talk about some stuff. Dan's going to wear his hat.
Pretty much. That sounds right. We got a bunch of stuff for the end of the year. We just put up our first review of the year. We have our year-end show with our top 5 movies coming. It'll be up tomorrow. No, Wednesday. So look out for that. That should be fun. We'll see if Kruger tries to kill Dan at some point, which I predict will happen.
The day after tomorrow. Okay, awesome. Well, I'll be happy to check that out. And ladies and gentlemen, as I said, we'll be back next week with a new episode. That is Greg Larson. That is Flesh Wound producer Todd. And I'm Ozzy V. We'll see you next week right here on Flesh Wound Farce.